All right, we have The Bean Trees by Barbara Kingsolver.
And this is, we didn't want to do any pictures because then we'd have to cite the sources. So we'll just show you the book cover right now. It's, okay, that's what it's like. First, the summary. So I wrote it all on here, but I'll just like talk about the book so that way if you want any references, just look at here. So it starts out in rural Kentucky with Taylor. She changed her name. Her original name was Missy Marietta Greer, but then later on in the book she changed it to Taylor. So it starts off in rural Kentucky with Marietta and her mom Alice Greer, and they live in a small town, and it's the same old thing every day basically. She goes to school, she comes home, she helps her mom, and it starts off with this, and then Marietta's like, she wants to be something more than just a small town girl, stay there her whole life and do nothing with it. So she decides after high school that she's going to go on with her life, move on, do something different. And she does this one day after she finishes high school, she does this. And she leaves in her old car that she worked up to save money to buy. She just decided to leave, and she had two goals. One was to not get pregnant, and the other was to go wherever her car took her. So once her car stopped working, that's where she'd stay. And the reason her goal was to not get pregnant was because in Kentucky, in this rural town, everyone basically got pregnant. Like in high school, out of all the girls in this class, 90% of you would have had a kid by now, because that's just how it was then. So she set out and moved on, and she went through Oklahoma, and her car actually broke down in Oklahoma, and so she stopped at, it didn't break down, but it like overheated, you know, when you need to give it a break. And she stopped at this local rundown bar, and she had supper there while her car was cooling down and stuff, and then she got back in her car and was leaving, and then this Cherokee woman, older, she put a baby, like not a baby, but a small child, like 2 or 3 years old, into the car with her and says, she'll be better off with you. So, and then that was the only explanation she gave. So Taylor, Taylor Marietta, she changed her name in this town because it was Taylorville. And then she was like, okay, I don't know what to do. So she just kept the child and drove on. And then they made it, her and this child made it to Arizona before Taylor's car broke down for good. And it broke down in Arizona at a place called Jesus' Tires Used Cars, or Used Tire, Jesus is Lord Used Tires. And it broke down here, and she decided to stay for good. And the owner of this store was Maddie, and Maddie was very friendly and helped Taylor and the child out. And Taylor decided to call this child Turtle because it did not talk. Like, it didn't have any communication, it just sat there, was mute, pretty much. So that's why she called it Turtle. And then Taylor started with her life, and she got a job, and she found a place to live nearby with a girl named Luann and her baby, Dwayne Ray. And then they just kind of went on living until Maddie had a couple of new guys, Esperanza and Esteban, stay with her. And these were illegal immigrants from Guatemala. And Maddie helps these people out, like helps them find a home where they won't be found by the government and transported back to Guatemala. So to do this, Maddie had to get them back to Oklahoma. And Taylor also was having the troubles of getting Turtle, like, to be her legal guardian because she got sick, so she had to take her to the doctor. And then when there wasn't any legal papers, she had to get legal papers, or the state of Arizona would take Turtle away from her. So she had to go back to Oklahoma and find either relatives of Turtle and get papers, so adoption papers. So they made a trip of Esperanza, Esteban, Turtle, and Taylor onto a trip back to Oklahoma, so that way Esperanza and Esteban could live there without having the fear of going back to Guatemala, and having Turtle be the legal have Taylor be the legal guardian of Turtle.
All right, now Taylor, or Marietta Greer. Now she was a young woman, as Johnny stated, who lived in her mother with rural Kentucky, however set out for a life on her own. Now, her plans are changed when she takes in a young native girl named Turtle. She's generally a kind personality, but a bit of headstrong as well. So, the two of them travel to Arizona until they settle down and they meet new people while trying to adapt to their new life. Now, Turtle is Taylor's adopted daughter. We learned that she was probably abused in her, well, I won't say previous life, but that's probably the best way to describe it, in her previous family. But she does not speak at all at the beginning, but she does gradually warm up more and more to Taylor as the two of them form a bond. For example, one of her first words was something related to vegetables, I believe.
Yeah, it was beans.
Beans, yeah. Now, at 3 years old, she's also a very curious and pretty intelligent, having a curious nature and an interest in plants.
Yeah, yeah, the bean trees, that's where they get it from, because that was her first words. And she, Maddie, in the back of her yard, she had a garden, and they had these plants there, the bean trees, and they were interesting to Taylor and Turtle, because Taylor's never seen anything like that, grew up in Kentucky. So yeah, and then they found out that Turtle was physically abused when she had to go to the doctor, and that's how, the doctor told Taylor that that's why she probably wasn't talking and why, like, she was being mute. Okay, and then Maddie, she is the owner of Jesus is Lord Used Tires, and she's a kind and wise lady. She's older and she serves as a second mother figure to Taylor. She has a garden that contains beautiful vegetables, which inspires Turtle. So she really starts talking and expressing herself more with these vegetables in the garden. And then Maddie, other than just this and owning the store, she helps illegal immigrants such as Esteban and Esperanza find a new home in the United States. So like, she lets a lot of people come in and stay with her and then come and go as they need to. And then she, opens her home to people in need. And then Luann is the person that Taylor stays with in Arizona. She was also from Kentucky but moved to Arizona. And she did this because she met and married a man named Angel who was on the rodeo circuit. So she had to go where he went. And then they also had a son. She had a son with Angel named Dwayne Ray. But they split up because Angel wasn't the nicest, most caring person to her, and he just kind of left her. And then she meets Taylor, and the two quickly become friends, and they start to root together. And Luann can relate to Taylor, having grown up in the same place as her, and she often helps her get used to the strong Mexican presence that's in Tucson, Arizona, where they're staying. And then Luann is a very worried and superstitious woman. She always thinks of the worst possible thing the worst possible outcome. So like when they were going on their trip back to Oklahoma, Luann was freaking out about something bad happening, like with Esperanza and Esteban getting caught, and what if Taylor doesn't get to keep Turtle? Like, she always thought of the worst thing that would happen.
And Esteban is a refugee from Guatemala, because he had been illegally immigrated into there with his wife, Esperanza. And then he often gives insight on his Hispanic culture from where he grew up and all the corruption that happened. And he is actually really good at speaking English. And he was an English teacher too. And Taylor and Esteban develop an attraction towards each other, but they stay just friends. He taught literature while staying at Maddie's upstairs in the work area where they lived. And then he ended up working at a Chinese restaurant there in the town. And he is a very caring, passionate, and kind person.
So for Esteban being an illegal immigrant, he's really smart, and he was a teacher, he taught literature, but when he got to the United States, he couldn't do that. He had to work at a Chinese restaurant washing dishes because he couldn't get a job like that. and he was really smart. He used a when he talked, spoke to like he would be a literature teacher. Like he didn't use common words. He's used a lot of different harder words, and Taylor was the one who got the attraction towards Esteban. Esteban was just friends with her, but she grew more of a feeling over time.
And Esperanza, Esteban's wife, she has a very sorrowful nature, and she reflects on her rough life back when she was in Guatemala, as they had lost their daughter when they had lived there. And Turtle ends up reminding her of her daughter, and she ends up holding a strong bond with Turtle. And due to what has happened to her in the past, she is sad, and she ended up trying to kill herself by having too much of a pill. And then
It wasn't the first time that because the first time, or when this happened, it only happened once in the book, but Esteban wasn't surprised at all by it happening, so it just kind of shows that she's done this before. And it's because when they lived in Guatemala, they had a younger daughter, but there was a series, what happened was there was these people where if you know their name, you don't want to know their name because you'll get in trouble with them, and they got in trouble with them and they kidnapped their daughter, and then they had to get out before they would get caught into it even more, so that's why they came to the United States, was because of the trouble that they got into.
Are you talking like a cartel?
Yeah. So that's why they came to the United States, and then that's why Esperanza is really depressed. She wasn't until this happened, but when she lost her daughter, it just kind of all fell apart. And then when she seen Turtle and realized how much similarities there were between them, she really broke down. And then some of our vocab.
Right. White wall. This is a tire that has a white stripe around it. Pretty simple. Now, whereas it's used in the book. Once Taylor arrives at Maddie's auto shop, she's reintroduced after tires because you see, at the very beginning of the book, she recalls a traumatic childhood experience where she saw the father of one of her school friends get he's driving on a tractor, and the tires popped, and he basically got flung all the way to the top of a gas station sign. So ever since then, she's been kind of afraid of tires, and these are kind of how she was reintroduced to them at Maddie's shop. Now, Cherokee. You guys have probably heard of these before. They are a nation of Native Americans that historically lived in the southeast before being moved to Oklahoma and that region. Now, throughout the book, we learn a lot about their culture and ways. And Taylor meets a number of Cherokees, including Turtle, and then several more on the reservation. And I believe that she herself was partially Cherokee. Is that correct?
This one was my favorite. I just love saying the word perturbed. That's one of the reasons I picked it as a definition, because I liked it. And it means anxious or unsettled or upset. And this word was used often, and one example was when Taylor and Esteban were having a conversation. Taylor was rambling on and on and on about who knows what, and she thought that Esteban was going to get upset, but Esteban did not seem perturbed, as he was calm and kind while listening. And then tarnation was another one, and it's used as a replacement or euphemism for damnation, so it's not as harsh, you could say, or bad. And tarnation came up a lot, and one example is when Luann called out, "What in the tarnation?" And she was expressing her frustration and anger that someone was blocking the road up ahead. Luann was basically the only one that used that word in the book.
Blanched means to extract color or to make pale. Like when someone says they've seen a ghost, their face gets all white or something, or pale. They use in the book at points where a character would be described as having a blanched face after learning something troubling. Like, for example, when Esperanza first saw Turtle, she had turned pale and was shocked to see how similar Turtle was to her own daughter.
And then our three ideas I chose to do adoption since it was a huge part of this book with Taylor adopting Turtle. So when Taylor leaves home, she finds herself in Oklahoma, where she gets Taylor, or where she gets Turtle, and then when Turtle got really sick and she needed to go to the doctor, they found out that she needed to get proper adoption papers, else Turtle would be taken into foster care in Arizona. So Taylor fixes this problem by going back to Oklahoma and making it official with a document saying that she is the legal guardian of Turtle. So she never did find the parents, but she went to a local agent in Oklahoma City, and he helped her find or get the papers for this. And how this happened was Esperanza and Esteban became the legal guardians of Turtle for a little bit, so it wasn't like totally legal how this happened, but that's how it did happen. And then today, like how it happened back then, that would not happen today. Like you could not do that today. So the adoption process in Arizona, there are many requirements that are needed. Like the parent must be certified by the court, has to have adoption orientation and training, a written application, and must be fit to take care of a child, which includes finances, health, and criminal records. So like Taylor might not even been able to keep Turtle if she did have the proper papers, just because of her financial, like how she's sitting with money-wise.
Right now, life in the southeastern U.S. and the southwestern U.S. This is a common comparison of Luann and Taylor comparing their old lives to their new ones. For example, we also see, it's basically a way of seeing their new lives from their own perspectives. We also get looks back into them from their phone calls to their mothers who are still living back in Lake Kentucky. So we get kind of insights of how that's going. Now one thing is about the relations, specifically racial relations between both regions. Now in Kentucky, the racial relations are still pretty high, because I'm imagining at the time this book took place, civil rights movement had just finished up, so things were still a little on edge. Whereas in, say, Arizona, they were relatively calm. Now compared to today, they're almost a bit reversed, since, well, all of the mass immigration that occurred within the last 20 years has made them a little more tense in Arizona. Like, it still occurred back in the 70s, or when I'm assuming this took place, but it's become much higher now, and things, of course, have gone down, have become much calmer since in the present in Kentucky.
And I used a question like, how does Taylor's attitude towards having children change as she gets attached to Turtle? Like, in the beginning, when she was in school, she didn't really see having children was a good idea, because it's hard to do that at a young age. And then when she does get Turtle, she ends up getting attached to her and becomes caring for her. And then she finally gets the idea of what it's like to be a mother, which is how she ends up on with her decision to keep Turtle.
So does her view of all mothers change, or does her view of herself as a mother change?
I think of like herself as a mother.
Can you explain?
Like, cause in the beginning of the book, she was headstrong, and she's like, I'm not gonna do this, She always she always put herself first, and then when Turtle came along, she started putting Turtle first before her. She would think about what's best for her instead of what's best for herself.
So does she still kind of look down on the young women from her hometown?
Probably a little bit, because she doesn't really see them as very responsible, whereas, she kind of respects herself since she developed the skills over time and developed a bond rather than just what they did.
And then our critical responses, I found 2 of them. a good one and a bad one, and then obviously that's the good one. In a neatly constructed tale, Barbara Kingsolver gives readers something that's increasingly hard to find today, a character to believe in and laugh with and admire. And for that, I mean, I kind of see how you can relate to it, like how it's good, but like, because you can put yourself in her shoes, you know? Not so much in this case because we're all sitting pretty good, like we won't just get up and leave one day because of like, we want something new. We're living in a pretty good environment where we wouldn't want to leave because we haven't had as many hard troubles as she has. So it's kind of hard to put yourself in her shoes, but yet you can still kind of do it.
But our kids in our school district, are a majority of you expecting to move from Tyler at some point, whether for school or for a job after? And that's not necessarily the same thing that Taylor was seeing in her hometown. It was unexpected for her to do that. It wouldn't have been encouraged.
Yeah, I guess you can. It's kind of opposite, because everyone stayed at home in Kentucky. Like they all stayed, had families. Their children went to school, had families, and then it's kind of different here. Here we grow up, we finish high school, we go off to college. Some come back and find a job. Some go somewhere else and find a job and start a family. And then for our like not good review, it wobbles, it rambles, no plot that I can find after reading 3/4 of the book. Nobody in the book is particularly interesting. Nothing particularly interesting happens, unlikely storyline. I finally just put it down.
I can kind of where this guy get where this person's coming on from, because the book does kind of, well, slow down a lot in the middle, basically.
Yeah, it doesn't really pick up until like the last the last fourth of it probably. Else it's just really slow throughout the whole thing.
Caitlin, you agree with him?
Yeah.
Which is fine, you know.
It's
Some people
pretty
are.
slow most of the time. Didn't really want to keep reading until the very last chapter.
Good. Any questions from the class for this group?
When Taylor left, what was her mom's like reaction to it?
She was kind of supportive, actually.
She was kind of expecting it.
Like
but-
understanding at least, you know.
Yeah, her mom knew she was gonna leave because Taylor talked about it with her mom, and she's like, she wanted the best for her daughter, so she was okay with her leaving and finding like herself, basically.
So she wasn't a runaway in that sense.
Yeah, she was like, cause her mom knew she was gonna go away. She just didn't know when. Taylor didn't tell her when. She just decided one day when it was right for her.
Okay, thank you.